The Hunger Games by Suzanne. Chapter 6. The training center has a tower designated exclusively for the tributes and their teams. This will be our home until the actual games begin. Each district has an entire floor. You simply step out onto an elevator and press the number of your district. Easy enough to remember. I've ridden the elevator a couple of times in the Justice Building, back in District 12. Once to receive the medal for my father's death, and then yesterday to say my final goodbyes to my friends and family. But that's a dark and creaky thing that moves like a snail and smells of sour milk. The walls of this elevator are made of crystal, so that you can watch the people on the ground floor shrink to ants as you shoot up into the air. It's exhilarating, and I'm tempted to ask Effie Trinket if we can ride it up again, but somehow that seems childish. Apparently, Effie Trinket's duties did not conclude at that station. She and Hamish will be overseeing us right into the arena. In a way, that's a plus, because at least she can be counted on to corral us around to places on time, whereas we haven't seen Hamish since he agreed to help us on the train. Probably passed out somewhere. Effie Trinket, on the other hand, seems to be flying high. We're the first team she's ever chaperoned that made a splash at the opening ceremonies. She's complimentary about not just our costumes, but how we conduct ourselves. And to hear her tell it, Effie knows everyone who's anyone in the Capitol and has been talking us up all day, trying to win us sponsors. I've been very mysterious, though, she says, her eyes squint half shut. Because, of course, Hamish hasn't bothered to tell you my strategies, but I've done my best with what I have to work with. How Katniss sacrificed herself for her sister. How you've both successfully struggled to overcome the barbarism of your district. Barbarism? That's like ironic coming from a woman helping to prepare us for slaughter. And what she's basing our success on? Our table manners? Everyone has their reservations, naturally, you being from the coal district. But I said, and this is very clever of me, I said, well, if you put enough pressure on coal, it turns to pearls. Effie beams at us so brilliantly that we have no choice but to respond enthusiastically to her cleverness, even though it's wrong. Coal doesn't turn to pearls. They grow in shellfish. Possibly she meant coal turns to diamonds, but that's untrue too. I've heard they have some sort of machine in District 1 that can turn graphite into diamonds. But we don't mine graphite in District 12. That was part of District 13's job until they were destroyed. I wonder if the people she's been plugging us to all day either know or care. Unfortunately, I can't seal the sponsor deals for you. Only Hamish can do that, says Effie grimly. But don't worry, I'll get him to the table at gunpoint if necessary. Although lacking in many departments, Effie Trinket has a certain determination I have to admire. My quarters are larger than our entire house back home. They're plush, like the train car, but also have so many automatic gadgets that I'm sure I won't have time to press all the buttons. The shower alone has a panel with more than 100 options you can choose, regulating water temperature, pressure, soaps, shampoos, scents, oils, and massaging sponges. When you step out on a mat, heaters come on that blow dry your body. Instead of struggling with the knots in my wet hair, I merely place my hand on a box that sends a current through my scalp, untangling, parting, and drying my hair almost instantly. It floats down around my shoulders in a glossy curtain. I programmed the closet for an outfit to my taste. The windows zoom in and out on parts of the city at my command. You need only whisper a type of food from my gigantic menu into a mouthpiece, and it appears, hot and steamy, before you in less than a minute. I walk around the room eating goose liver and puffy bread until there's a knock on the door. Effie's calling me to dinner. Good, I'm starving. Peta, Senna, and Portia are standing out on the balcony that overlooks the Capitol when we enter the dining room. I'm glad to see the stylist, particularly after I hear that Hamish will be joining us. A meal presided over by just Effie and Trinket is bound to be a disaster. Besides, dinner isn't really about food. It's about planning out our strategies, and Senna and Portia have already proven how valuable they are. A silent young man dressed in a white tunic offers us all steamed glasses of wine. I think about turning it down, but I've never had wine, except the homemade stuff my mother uses for coughs. And when will I get a chance to try it again? I tried a sip of the tart, dry liquid and secretly thought it could be improved by a few spoonfuls of honey. Hamish shows up just as dinner is being served. It looks as if he's had his own stylist, because he's clean and groomed, and about as sober as I've seen him. He doesn't refuse the offer of wine, but when he starts on his own soup, I realize it's the first time I've ever seen him eat. Maybe he really will put himself together long enough to help us. Senna and Portia seem to have a civilizing effect on Hamish and Effie. At least they're addressing each other decently, and they both have nothing but praise for our stylist's opening act. While they make small talk, I concentrate on the meal. Mushroom soup, bitter greens with tomatoes and the size of peas, roast beef sliced as thin as paper, noodles in a green sauce, cheese that melts on your tongue served with sweet blue grapes. The servers, all young people dressed in white tunics, like the one who gave us wine, move wordlessly to and from the table, keeping the platters and glasses filled. About halfway through my glass of wine, my head starts feeling foggy, so I change to water instead. I don't like the feeling and hope it wears off soon. How Hamish can stand walking around like this full time is a mystery. I try to focus on the talk, which is turned to our interview costumes when a girl sets a gorgeous-looking cake on the table and deftly lights it. It blazes up, and then the flames flicker around the edges a while until it finally goes out. I have a moment of doubt. What makes it burn? Is it alcohol? I say, looking up at the girl. That's the last thing I want. Oh, I know you. I can't place a name or time to the girl's face, but I'm certain of it. The dark red hair, the striking features, the porcelain white skin. But even as I utter the words, I feel my insides contracting with anxiety and guilt at the sight of her. And while I can't pull it up, I know some bad memories associated with her. The expression of terror that crosses her face only adds to my confusion and unease. She shakes her head in denial quickly and hurries away from the table. When I look back, the four adults are watching me like hawks. Don't be ridiculous, catnips. How could you possibly know an Avox? Snaps Effie. The very thought. What's an Avox? I asked stupidly. Someone who committed a crime. They cut her tongue so she can't speak, says Hamish. She's probably a traitor of some sort. Not likely you'd know her. And even if you did, you're not to speak to one of them unless it's to give an order, says Effie. Of course you don't really know her. But I do know her. And now that Hamish has mentioned the word traitor, I remember from where. The disapproval is so high I could never admit it. No, I guess not. I stammer, and the wine is not helping. As Peter snaps his fingers. Deli Cartwright. That's who it is. I keep thinking she looked familiar as well. Then I realize she's a dead ringer for Deli. Deli Cartwright is a pasty-faced, lumpy girl with yellowish hair who looks about as much like our server as a beetle does a butterfly. She may also be the friendliest person on the planet. She smiles constantly at everybody in school, even me. I have never seen the girl with the red hair smile, but I jump on Peter's suggestion gracefully. Of course, that's who I was thinking of. It must be the hair, I say. Something about the eyes, too, says Peter. The energy at the table relaxes. Oh well, if that's all it is, says Senna. And yes, the cake has spirits, but all the alcohol is burned off. I ordered it specifically in honor of your fiery debut. We eat the cake and move into a sitting room to watch the replay of the opening ceremonies that's been broadcast. A few of the other couples make a nice impression, but none of them can hold a candle to us. Even our own party let out an "ah" as they show us coming out of the remake center. "Whose idea was a hand-holding?" says Hamish. "Cinna's," says Portia. "Just a perfect touch of rebellion," says Hamish. "Very nice." Rebellion. I have to think about that one a moment. But when I remember the other couples, standing stiffly apart, never touching or acknowledging each other, as if their fellow tribute did not exist, as if the games had already begun, I know what Hamish means. Presenting ourselves not as adversaries, but as friends has distinguished us as much as the fiery costumes. Tomorrow is the first training session. Meet me for breakfast, and I'll tell you exactly how I want you to play it, says Hamish to Peeta and me. Now go get some sleep while the grown-ups talk. Peeta and I walk together down the corridor to our rooms. When we get to my door, he leans against the frame, not blocking my entrance exactly, but insisting I pay attention to him. "So Deli Cartwright. Imagine finding her look-alike here." He's asking for an explanation, and I'm tempted to give him one. We both know he covered for me, so here I am in his debut again. If I tell him the truth about the girl, somehow that might even things out. How can it hurt, really? Even if he repeated the story, I couldn't do me much harm. It was just something I witnessed, and he lied as much as I did about Deli Cartwright. I realize I do want to talk to someone about the girl, someone who might be able to help figure out her story. Gail will be my first choice, but it's unlikely I'll ever see Gail again. I try to think if telling Peeta could give him any possible advantage over me, but I don't see how. Maybe sharing a confidence will actually make him believe I see him as a friend. Besides, the idea of the girl with her maimed tongue frightens me. She has reminded me why I'm here, not to model flashy costumes and eat delicacies, but to die a bloody death while the crowds urge on my killer. To tell or not to tell. My brain still feels slow from the wine. I stare down the empty corridor as if the decision lies there. Peeta picks up on my hesitation. "Have you been on the roof yet?" I shake my head. Cinna showed me. You can practically see the whole city. The wind's a bit loud, though. I translate this into, "No one will overhear us talking," in my head. You do have the sense that we might be under surveillance here. Can we just go up? "Sure, come on," says Peeta. I follow him to a flight of stairs that leads to the roof. There's a small dome-shaped room with a door to the outside. As we step into the cool, windy evening air, I catch my breath at the view. The Capitol twinkles like a vast field of butterflies. Electricity in District 12 comes and goes. Usually we only have it a few hours a day. Often the evenings are spent in candlelight. The only time you can count on it is when they're airing the games or some important government message on television that is mandatory to watch. But here, there will be no shortage, ever. Peeta and I walk to a railing at the edge of the roof. I look straight down the side of the building to the street, which is buzzing with people. We can hear their cars, an occasional shout, and a strange metallic tinkling. In District 12, we'd all be thinking about bed right now. I asked Cinna why they let us up here. Weren't they worried that some of the tributes might decide to jump right over the side, says Peeta.